All right, hello everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we sit down with some of the sharpest minds in the management consulting industry. This episode is powered by Clubhouse AI. At Clubhouse AI, we help management consulting firms break free from outdated lead gen methods like networking events and referrals, which often lead to more wishful thinking than real strategy. Our battle-tested, data-driven client acquisition system brings in your ideal clients with no chasing, no guesswork, just predictable compounding growth. If you're a management consultant and you're looking to scale your business and see results within the first week, DM us the word growth for a free consultation. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Today we have a very special guest who is Judy Ryan, the CEO of LifeWork Systems. Thank you so much for being with us today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the podcast, and it's really nice to meet you. I have been in business. We just started this month our 24th year of LifeWork
Wow.
Systems. Yeah, I know. I can't believe it. And so the work we do is focused on workplace culture change, especially where it's evolving right now because of so many things like increased complexity and speed of change and all the new technologies and the diversity and the globalization and all kinds of trends that are impacting the way people need to function. So that's the primary thing we do. But we also have individual and group services for people who want to be professionally developed and personally developed because good human systems are good human systems regardless of if they're at work or in the society in general. So that's pretty much what we do.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds very, very valuable to someone who might be looking for that. Would you be able to share a little bit more, like what your role is in the company, how it fits into the bigger picture?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is super important is that people recognize the power of systemic change, meaning changing the whole system. So when it comes to culture and organizational development, the evolution of that is such that it's moving in the direction of a shared power model. I mean, I even heard something the other day about the Catholic Church, which is over 1 billion people. They're trying to do more of a shared power model, which is really unusual because most organizations and institutions that have been around a long time, they're in a top-down mode. So what I've done is built a system that's a shared power model and used a very specific kind of implementation that involves everyone from the CEO to the frontline staff. So I'm holding that vision for creating the conditions and the conversations within all kinds of organizations where people can love their lives. And I know that sounds very touchy-feely, but the reality is that when people don't love their lives, they are not showing up as really fully engaged, uh, innovative, creative, gung-ho
Right.
employees who are loyal.
Right. Yeah, that's so important. You're not gonna be doing well at work if you don't think it's worth it to make your life any better. That's something that's
Right.
awesome. What does a typical day look like for you?
A lot of times it is leading groups that are being certified in our program, which is called Culture EX, which is our primary guided culture transformation process. So that's normally a process that a client would go through in 14 months, but I'll help certify the people that will be overseeing those projects in a 7 month window because they do it in double time.
Yeah.
And also, it's working on building up partnerships, revenue sharing partnerships, because culture change is not easy. It's not a one and done. It's not a fast food kind of solution. And so you need to be working with people that are in adjacent kind of industries. So a lot of times we're partnering and certifying people in the agile technology space or the AI space because they recognize that if we don't have the collaboration that we need, these projects are going to fail.
Right.
People are going to get freaked out and they're going to leave and uh, get discouraged. And so building those partnerships is very important to us because we have a solution that could be scaled globally.
Right.
And so, in order to do that, sometimes other countries are more progressive at times than the United States about a shared power model. So that's kind of the main two things I'm doing right now is certifying the next cadre of oversight consultants who often have other full-time jobs,
Okay.
but they want to do our work because it's not a full-time job to be an oversight consultant for us. It's a
Gotcha.
part-time job.
Okay,
It's
awesome. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I like what you said. You're helping them collaborate and helping them work together better. That's the core of business. That's probably the most important thing that you could
yeah,
solve for somebody. That's amazing.
yeah.
And being someone in AI, you mentioned AI as well. How has that impacted your business or growth strategy?
Well, for the most part, I see AI as a tool, just like a computer or a cell
Mhm.
phone. And I think a lot of people are afraid that AI is going to replace them. And in some instances, it will. But there's a movement in what's called the fourth industrial revolution, which was automation, our use of things like AI, to make work more efficient, life more efficient. I mean, I hope someday to have more than a little thing vacuuming my floor, maybe something that could do my dishes as
Right?
well.
Right, that'd be great.
But the move from the fourth industrial revolution to the fifth industrial revolution is really important because the fifth industrial revolution is making sure that automation is a complement to humanity, not a replacement for humanity.
Right.
That it assures people that it is to enhance and magnify their skills, their strengths, their vision, their humanness.
Right.
And and so I think that it's particularly helpful to bring people together at all the different levels so there is less fear.
Right.
And when there's less fear, there's more loyalty to one another, there's more care for one another, um, there's more safety. A lot of people talk about
Hmm.
psychological safety. If you don't have that, people are terrified to even present new ideas to one
Right.
another.
Right. Yeah. I think it's amazing. I like what you said when AI is best as used as a tool to help out humans. I always say that, AI is nothing without HI, human intelligence. It's just the
Yes.
same as, a calculator is not going to do your work for you, but it's a great tool to help you as well. But yeah, the automating things with AI is the most valuable thing that it provides as well as a tool. Just like the way we use it, we replace the administrative tasks or the tasks that can be easily automated to free up the time of, let's say, your sales team or your consultants from chasing down different leads or chasing down different people to say, hey, come hop on a sales call with me. Rather, we're letting AI take care of those roles so that those people can hop on the more important calls and the more important tasks and do what humans are best at. And I think that's one of the most amazing things that AI does, especially.
Yes, we're using AI right now to design some commercials that we think
Awesome.
will hopefully put us on the map because probably one of the biggest challenges is there's so much noise out there, on
Yeah.
social media and on ads and everything. And so we want to differentiate with some humor. I won't give it all away, but excited about that. But it's amazing what AI
Awesome.
can do for things like that, just
Yeah.
to create what looks almost like a realistic set of people on a
Right.
commercial.
Right. It's almost scary how good it's getting now. Yeah.
Yes.
I gotcha. Well, apart from AI, that being probably the biggest thing that's changing business right now, what other major shifts or trends are you seeing that's affecting you guys?
Well, I think part of it is it's difficult for people to understand what is a healthy culture.
Hmm.
So I always say culture is a little bit like the word parenting. You could have 10 parents in a room and ask them what is healthy parenting, and you could get 10 very different answers.
Hmm.
The same is true of culture. So, one of the difficulties that I see with where the world is heading is understanding what kind of culture is going to be the most effective and helpful and why. But also, how do you implement it in a way that it is sustainable, that it is consistent, that it is something that you can use not only to create health amongst the existing employees, but interview and hire and onboard new employees into the system. So I think that that is so underestimated in the minds of most people. And I'll just give you a really simple example, Ethan. Just one tool. And I'm not a big person on tools alone because I always say a fool with a tool is still a fool. So
Mhm.
it's about changing mindset also. But let's say that two of the tools we teach are on how to stop gossip and how to do healthy venting, because people do need to vent. And
Right.
they do need to know how to resolve issues with one another. And if they don't know those things, they're going to go to gossip. Even they're going to call it venting, but it's going to be gossip. And so when you establish a guideline where people commit to one another, hey, Ethan, I'm not going to say bad things about you behind your back. I'm going to come to you if I have a problem with you.
Mhm.
I'm going to stop people if they come and start saying bad things about you. And I'm going to try to get them to go to you so that they don't carry that to others, or hold on to the grudge. That's a really big deal commitment. And it requires a lot of backup. It's like, otherwise, it's like I gave you a tennis racket, but I didn't teach you how to play tennis. So, one of the challenges is understanding how do you implement that in a bigger system where there's a lot of support for knowing how to go to one another and how to sustain that. So, when a new employee is hired, for example, if an organization has adopted that tool,
Yeah.
might make it a policy that when somebody's new, they go to that person and say, hey, we just want to let you know we're committed to psychological safety here. Part of our culture is that we make this commitment to each other if we're ready to, if we're willing to, and I'm willing to make this commitment to you. And then they say those four promises.
Yep.
And they ask the person, would you be willing to do it back to me? And if they're not, that's okay too. And what that does is it establishes right away with the new employee, wow, this company means what they say. They're individually coming to me, telling me that they're committed to not gossiping about me or letting others gossip about them. And that's just one example.
Right.
So that's difficult because most people haven't even considered that way of operating
Hmm.
or what are all the things that go into that kind of a shared power model and how do you make sure that they're integrated and, useful. I'm excited about it, but I think it's still a kind of not mainstream yet way
Yeah.
of operating.
Yeah, and that's something I think that would help many businesses being able to have a safe workplace environment that people come into every day and can be productive. If they come into work today thinking that someone's going to be, picking on them or making their day a little bit harder, they're not going to do as good a job. And that's a way you can connect that to revenue as well. I think that's amazing.
Oh, totally connects to revenue.
Right.
We had one client that we've worked with for about 10 years, and it was a health organization. And when the pandemic hit, they wrote to me and said, we have such high trust that even though we were all sent to work remote and we had so many things we had to switch, like telehealth and all of that,
Right.
was relatively smooth for them because they didn't have the overlying problem of poor communication and low
Hmm.
trust and that was just so nice to hear because it was a real live example of the ability to salvage. Some
Right.
companies went under during that time because of the inability to pivot.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely where you see a lot of pivot points in most major industries. Like myself, I used to be in the golf industry, and you saw a huge pivot, like in a good sense, to large and large and large amounts of new golfers coming to the game, and it was huge. And some people weren't able to adapt to it, like you said, and they didn't do too well. But the people that had the systems in place that allowed them to be ready for something like that was great. Yeah, and I agree communication and having those proper workplace environments set up is key for businesses. Well, now that we've covered the general senses of the industry where we're at, what things look like, I want to know where you guys are at. So what's working well for you guys right now and what's been frustrating?
I think what's working well is that a lot of people are seeking win-win. Um,
Hmm.
well, the way I say it is, I even have a business show called When Everyone Wins. And it's shifting power over and power under to power within and power between, which is what we do in our model as well. And so the bad news and the good news, however you want to look at it, is that people are recognizing that the old way of zero sum, top down, win lose is it some in some cases both politically and economically and in the business community is holding on with a death grip. that old way of doing things, because it used to seem to work, even though there were always people that were on the losing end of that.
Right.
So I think what's positive is that people are starting to recognize that we there's got to be a better way. And so when they hear about that better way and they understand the principles in which we used for our implementation,
Mhm.
they're ready. That's why our vision is to work with like-minded, like-hearted people. We don't look at every business owner out there as our client because some people, if they're really convinced that win-lose is the way to go, they are not good fit for us.
Right.
There's many that want something different and they are ripe for being ready.
Right.
They, in some instances, it means the difference between whether they stay in business or not. So that's where I'm excited to make sure that we've been positioned. We've got what's working for us is we've built this consistent, proven, scalable system. And we're starting to be able to make impacts in other countries. We've worked a little bit with Brazil, with New Zealand, with the UK, with Canada, and that is exciting because some of those places, like I said, are just as open or eager or visionary
Right.
and fit that. So what doesn't work is when we come across somebody that is unwilling to work within our process. For example, sometimes we'll talk to a client and we'll say to the top level people, the C-suite, you, in this pilot project, for example, you have to mix with people at all the levels. So you will be in small groups. You will be mentored by somebody who is a frontline staff, and they will be mentored by you because we don't have a conventional mentoring. Imagine that, Ethan.
Right.
Say somebody's brand new and they're mentoring the CEO. There's power,
Right.
there's really good power in that. And sometimes the leaders are like, well, no, we want to keep our group separate and like, that sort of, I don't know, mysterious, we're the top of the ladder.
Yeah.
And 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 sometimes it's scary to the frontline staff because they're not used to being mixed.
Hmm.
But even when I raised my own children, Ethan, we did family meetings every week. And by the time each of our children was 5, they knew how to run a family meeting because we would rotate that.
Right.
That was not only good for them, it was good for me and my husband at the time. I'm now divorced, but at the time, it was good for us because we had to learn how to be good followers to a 5-year-old. And that is what is needed today in these agile, enterprise agile projects and these AI projects is people not sitting back and going, well, I don't want to think out loud. I don't want to jump in, even though I'm the one that has the best answer here. They don't want to do it because they haven't had practice in leading and following, which is really what agile is agility, to be
Right.
flexible. And so what's working is the world is starting to see that we can't progress without changing the system of the human being so that the human being can expand into the potential that's needed right now. So it's both the good and the bad. The need is great, which is working for us. The difficulty is getting the word out there and having people devote the time to it.
Right.
It's about 5 hours a month. And that may sound like a small amount, but to a company, that's a lot of time
Yep.
to just learn some new things. And that's on top of learning AI, for example.
Right, right. I think what you said is amazing. I know for a fact that it's so valuable to be able to mesh the top and the bottom. I think it's amazing what you said. You have the bottom line mentor, the top of the line people. I think it's such a contrast there that it's so effective. I think it's amazing. And on the other side there, what you said is working well. Um, I like that you said, you have your system that works. If you don't have your value, you're not gonna be able to sell anything. That's your biggest selling point is your value and your product, what you sell. And if it's not good, you're not gonna be able to sell it. And that's the bottom line there. And I think that's good that you guys have that system that that works and it's proven and battle tested there. It's amazing. And then getting in front of people, that's the thing that every business struggles with. And if anyone could fix one problem, it'd be their marketing, and they'd say, I want to be in front of my ICP all times. That's great. And from a growth standpoint and where you guys are at, what kind of metrics are you guys focusing on improving right now in terms of growing?
Well, we're looking at how we can develop more partnerships and
Hmm.
how we can be even more effective within those partnerships because we pay very well for people who just want to connect us.
Yeah.
Because it is about finding those like-minded people. And when they're like-minded and they fully understand what we are doing, they are advocates and they don't have to go out and sell it because we are the ones who do the selling. So the metrics we're looking at are how many of the partners are we building? How effective are they being?
Right.
How much can they make? Are they making? Also, what industries most need our help? So a lot of times we're focused on those new technologies. Some of the people that go through our certification have been in the new technology areas, the AI and the agile practitioners, because they realize, wow, a lot of them will say, wow, we should have done this before we brought in this
Right.
because they can see the tie-in. And they also see sometimes that they go in and do those kind of projects without the involvement of the C-suite. And we don't allow that in our work. The C-suite has to understand the world of everyone. And just to get back to a little bit on, so the metrics, just to measure, say that is
Yeah.
how many organizations can we get into? How many partnerships can we build? How effective are those partnerships being?
Right.
And it really is partly marketing as well. So we try to market the differentiators, which are kind of culture and kind of implementation.
Gotcha. Would you be able to elaborate on that last bit there? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, first of all, in education, what they found is in all levels of education, from little children all the way through university, if they do the old style, I don't know if you're so young, you might have done what I'm talking about, but in the old days, it was always being lectured at by a teacher. And then you would go home and do your homework, and then you would be ready for the test. And you might do well on the test if you're conscientious, but you wouldn't retain or see the relevance of what you were doing. Not like over time they would say, boy, they didn't retain very much of that. So what education started to do was to look at how do we help the students learn in such a way that they retain what they learn. So what they would do is they would assign them something that they would go do on their own. Maybe it was a packet or a video or an online course nowadays. And then they would come together in the classroom and the students would take turns teaching and facilitating conversation about what they just learned,
Oh,
the relevance of it. What do they understand it? How would they apply it? If it lends itself to practicing it, they would practice it. And the teacher would just be more of an oversight. Have you heard of this, Ethan? This thing called
I have, yeah, I think we've done that a few times back whenever I was in high school or middle school or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something that happens when you have to teach or lead somebody in something that doesn't happen when you're a passive observer.
Yeah.
So when we do our implementation, we have like 11 places that people engage with the content. So they do an individual online module. They have to fill out a reflective survey. Like you have to think about, would I really be able to go to Ethan if I have a problem with him? Would I really be able to stop gossiping about Ethan? Because when you think about it, sometimes you're like, well, not that person. I want to gossip about that person. I'm using that as one example.
Gotcha.
And then they come together in small groups where those levels are mixed. So the CEO is in the same group with the frontline staff and the middle line staff,
Right.
and they are taking turns leading discussion about what they all wrote in their workbooks, how would they apply this? In some instances, they're practicing, like they're doing those tools, they're doing the healthy venting, and then they are paired up in sometimes across the various small groups so that they're getting to know people in other small groups because we keep those groups to 10 or less. And the oversight consultant is like the teacher in the sense that they're sitting in to make sure that the content is understood. If there's a place where they're not understanding it, they might jump in. That they are supporting the people who are leading those small groups each month or each every other week if it's a certification, and that they are prepping them. And then they're sitting in on those mentoring sessions because the mentoring in this model is not counsel. It's like if I were mentoring you, Ethan, I would be asking you questions that would allow you to become aware of things. And then I would be asking you questions about what will you do about it
Right.
specifically? What is your specific plan? And then I would be writing that down. And then I'd be checking in with you and going, Ethan, how did that go? I know you were going to do X, Y, and Z. How did that turn out? So that it's a support, not a policing. And that's
Hmm.
why a brand new 19-year-old employee can mentor a CEO because it's not about, I have all this wise advice to give you. It's, I'm here to help you access the wisdom within you about
Right.
what you're learning and how you understand it and how to apply it. And that goes ongoing after the whole system is adopted. So it, integrating it, like one of the visions I have is to create an app that has all of the 30 tools that we bring to them in it, but also has a daily reminder of a concept or a term like, hey, it's time to revisit the mind trust. How many of you need to do a mind trust with somebody again or whatever, so that it's kept front and center.
Hmm.
So that's what's important about the implementation and helping people understand what happens when you don't have kind of an immersive process like that and what happens when you do have an immersive process. So thanks for asking about that, because to me, that's almost more important, well, at least as important as the culture model itself.
Right. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that. It seems like you're almost encouraging self-reflection there. Instead of rather, mom telling you to clean your room or do the chores, you're trying to help them understand from their perspective, what they're doing and then come to realize it themselves rather than someone taking it out of them. I like that. And
Yes.
and you said before you're focusing on improving your marketing and partnerships that help you build connections. I was wondering what you meant by specifically by those two things.
Well, we're doing these commercials,
Hmm.
looking to build some ads around those commercials.
Yeah.
We're also promoting a lot of different connections with our partnerships through the business show. So when our business show is an hour-long format, we take those and make them into 30 to 90-second clips that highlight the
Yeah.
guests that are there. So those are a couple of things that we're doing. We also have people that are pushing out we have over 200 published articles, a published book. We have all kinds of interviews. Like this one will be promoted out.
Right, right.
So those are the things we're doing right now.
Okay. I love that. That's great. Yeah, those are great habits and things to be doing. Well, now that we've covered all that, where are you guys looking to be in the next 6 to 12 months? What kind of goals are you trying to achieve?
Oh gosh, I don't, I need to, one of the things that we promote is what's called a blueprint process.
Hmm.
And in that blueprint process, we create the vision, the next step vision of how much revenue we want to generate, where we want to grow in terms of global reach, where we want to be financially, and also where we want to be with our partnerships and our oversight consultants. So it's time right now, as we're ending 2025, to look at that and write that next version of that.
Gotcha.
Because right now, the landscape, especially in the United States, is really difficult. People are scared because of what's going on economically. What was once easier, like an executive retreat, for example, is not as, people are not as quick to jump on something like that
Right.
because, they don't know if they can even get on an airplane and get there with the FHA, being in a bind. So we're looking at how do we envision our next specific metrics with what's happening right now in the world.
Gotcha. Okay, that's definitely important to align your goals with what's going on as well. Yeah, what's if you could solve one major challenge today, this would be a fun one. If you could solve one major challenge that's holding you guys back from where you guys would want to be, what would that be?
I would say having a stronger breakthrough with these
Hmm.
commercials building because they're funny.
Yeah.
And I think you almost need something that puts you on the map that way
Yep.
because otherwise you get lost in the noise. So I would say that would be the most exciting and fun thing to have happen
Yeah.
because these commercials are kind of funny.
Awesome.
We're hoping that we're right and putting our energy there right now,
Yeah.
because once you get people talking about something, that's half the battle.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think viral marketing is one of the best things you can do, and being funny is probably the best way to get there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, it's been a great today. I was wondering, before we wrap it up, we've covered almost everything. What's one message or biggest lesson you've learned on your journey as CEO, as a consultant, that has helped you become where you are today?
I would say the thing that is most important is to really be clear about what makes you a healthy human being.
Hmm.
Part of that is identifying what you cause at your best. So I know what I cause at my best is creating the conditions in which people love their lives. And I do that for myself as well. I look at, am I loving my life? Can I continue to build upon what I have strengthened within myself,
Right,
within others? And so I would say to people, get excited about who you are, reclaim your power, and use it for what you like to cause at your best. When you do that, you really can't go wrong no matter what's happening around you.
right.
I can't state that more strongly. So thanks for asking, Ethan.
That's amazing. Well, Judy, thank you so much for being on today. It's been amazing. I've learned so much. I hope that people listening or who may listen have learned so much from you today. And I really appreciate your time,
Thank you, Ethan.
of course.